Some wartime inventions were born in laboratories. Others were born because people were cold, hungry, and out of options. This is one of the latter, a survival trick so clever and so effective that it kept families alive in blackout cities and soldiers breathing through nights that would have frozen them stiff. If you're the kind of viewer who loves uncovering the gritty, ingenious solutions history tries to bury, buckle in and tap that subscribe button so you never miss another rediscovered skill from the forgotten war fronts. Because today we're digging into the lost WWII heat candle, a hand-built device that turned wax and scrap metal into life-saving warmth when coal, gas and electricity were nothing but rumours. And the best part, it still works. When Europe went dark under blackout curtains, the cold became an enemy all its own. Coal was rationed to factories, gas pipes were shattered, electric lines flickered out as fast as bombers could fly overhead. Yet families survived, soldiers survived, refugees survived. Not with fireplaces, not with radiators, with tin cans, wax, cardboard, and sheer wartime stubbornness. This wasn't a luxury craft, it was a necessity, a skill passed hand to hand, and in diaries, field notes, and after-action accounts you can find the trail of one of the smartest low-tech heating methods ever used. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. Across Britain, Eastern Europe, and the front lines stretching from France to frozen Russian trenches, one principle drove innovation. Use what you have. Make it last. Make it count. As fuel supplies dwindled, people turned to small, dense, slow-burning heat sources made from whatever they could salvage. These early survival candles were so effective that entire rooms could be made livable through a single tin can glowing in the dark. Civilians melted leftover wax from broken candles. Others rendered cooking fat. Soldiers tore cotton from worn uniforms to create wicks. Old jam tins and food cans became moulds. But the genius wasn't in the materials. It was in the structure. This is where wartime ingenuity really shines. These heat candles were layered like a weapon, engineered without engineers. The method followed a simple logic. A metal container, a dense wick structure, a high fuel load, a wide steady burn. Tin or steel cans served as both the candle mould and the radiator. Once heated, the metal acted like a tiny stove, pushing warmth outward. Inside, civilians and soldiers packed strips of cardboard or rolled cotton fabric tightly, top to bottom. These strips weren't just wicks, they were an internal skeleton, drawing wax upward, feeding multiple microflames, and keeping the burn slow and even. Once the cardboard was in place, melted wax was poured over it until the entire core was saturated. 1 pound of wax in a soup-size can. 3 parts wax to 1 part wick material, a ratio refined by people who didn't have the luxury of trial and error. The result? A candle that could burn 10 to 12 hours straight and raise the temperature of a small enclosed room by several degrees, enough to keep frostbite away, enough to keep families alive. You don't need a laboratory to understand why this worked. The flame surface area was wide, not narrow like a normal candle. The wax acted as a slow-release fuel tank. The cardboard created dozens of tiny capillary channels. The metal can radiated heat outward like a mini stove. Cluster 3 of these under an inverted clay pot or steel plate, a trick found in several wartime notes, and the heat multiplies. The cover traps warm air, forcing it to radiate into the room. Within 30 minutes, even an icy shelter begins to soften. And remember, all of this was done with scraps. If you ever need to recreate this lost heater, for emergencies, off-grid living, or, just pure historical curiosity, here's the wartime process. Short, punchy, proven. First, find a metal can about the size of a soup tin. Second, cut cardboard strips to match the height of the can. Third, roll them tightly into a spiral and fit them inside. Fourth, melt wax safely using a double boiler. Fifth, pour wax slowly over the cardboard until it's fully soaked. Sixth, let it harden and trim any excess. Seventh, light the top edge and allow the can to warm. Eighth, for more heat, use 2 or 3 under a solid metal or ceramic cover. Within minutes, you'll feel the heat radiating from the sides. But one rule from 1940 still stands in 2025. Never use flame heat in a sealed room. Ventilate, always. Wartime manuals warned constantly about carbon monoxide, and that danger hasn't changed. What makes this lost candle so compelling isn't the wax or the cardboard, it's the spirit behind it. People who had every reason to panic chose instead to adapt. Housewives stirred wax into jars, soldiers packed heaters into their kits, refugees melted down what little they had left just to keep their children warm. They used salt to stabilize wicks. They saved grease when candles ran out. They repurposed tea tins into portable warmers. Every tiny innovation brought someone through another night. This wasn't just survival. It was everyday ingenuity, a blueprint for resilience. And that's why this forgotten heater still matters. Not as nostalgia, but as a reminder of what people can do when everything else fails. We live in a world of fragile supply chains, digital dependence, and a dangerous assumption that comfort is guaranteed. But history says otherwise. A heat source that kept soldiers alive in frozen bunkers is still just as useful in emergency vehicles, off-grid cabins, long power outages, disaster zones, and survival shelters. It's not outdated, it's timeless. Simple materials, reliable heat, no electricity required. A practical skill that links us directly to the people who lived through the harshest winters of the 20th century and refused to give in. If you recreate this wartime heater, do it the way they did. Carefully, deliberately, learn from it. You'll feel that same quiet warmth people felt 80 years ago when everything else had gone cold. And if this piece gave you something valuable today, then help keep these forgotten skills alive. Share it with someone who'd appreciate it, and subscribe so you're part of the crew digging through the stories history tried to bury. Because on the forgotten war fronts, we don't just study the past. We carry it forward, one rediscovered survival skill at a time.